Good morning. It's a beautiful day for a service, I think, and I think you'll share that with me. And it's also a wonderful feeling to be looking out and seeing so many friends, so many new folks, just so many people. Hello, my name is Ray Knutson, and I serve as today's worship leader. And one thing that I love about this congregation, and I think the number of people here kind of speaks to that, is our openness to newcomers. I've heard multiple times visitors comment on how people come up to them and start conversations in the Sky Room or wherever and make them feel comfortable. And as I walk around the Sky Room after the service, I see lots of our members going up to visitors and engaging them, and I know this makes a difference. I want to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder, and I want to take a moment to extend a very special, warm welcome to everyone who's visiting us for the first time, and someone quite special who's visiting us for not quite the first time. For those of you who don't know, this is Reverend Terry. You've met. You've known. If you're joining us online, please fill out a visitor form at the link in your description. We'd love to connect with you. Part of our mission is to connect bravely, and we're glad that you're sharing part of your Sunday here all together. Many of us were once, too, seeking for something larger than ourselves to which we could belong, a sense of rootedness to hold us as we create meaning together. We do that well here, though not perfectly. In this congregation, we strive not for perfection, but for authenticity and connection. Whether it's your first time in worship with us or your 100th time, we hope that you'll find here questions that stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal religious education values that challenge you to join us in loving boldly, living justly, and welcoming radically. Now, I have two invitations to share this morning. 3 weeks from today, September 10th, is our in-gathering service, also known as, the water service, right? With an all-church barbecue lunch. Excuse me. You'll wait till you're up here singing. It will be a big, boisterous, all-ages service at 11 o'clock, and plan to stay and eat afterwards. Second, many of you might be familiar with the teepee raisers. I know Reverend Dana was very involved, and many of you are very involved in that. A partnership with indigenous folks on the Pine Ridge and Hopi reservations. For the last few years, we've sent groups of people to week-long trips to build relationships, educate non-native folks, do service work, and follow indigenous leadership. Teepee Raisers has a new headquarters facility, and it's just down the road from us in Louisville. I wondered, because it says Louisville, but it was Lafayette. Okay. You're wrong. This is right. Lafayette, like I said. On Saturday, October 14th, we'll bring several dozen of us over there for a day of work and relationship building. After the service, sign up at the table in the Sky Room. Thank you.
I want to begin with a few words of appreciation. First, to Karen Morgan and Sharon LaRook, I am wearing a new stole that they made. And I think this is absolutely stunning. We talked early on, they said, well, what should this look like? And I asked them to interpret and adapt, and through their artistic vision, create something that spoke to some of who I was and some of who this congregation is. And I love the earth and the sky that's here, the textures, the water, the aspen leaves falling down. I am just absolutely thrilled. Thank you. Thank you. I also want to say a word of appreciation to everyone who has made the transformations happen. If you are coming back this morning, you notice you have new name tags, a new logo, a new website, new signage, and I want to say a word of thanks. Over the summer, which was to have been a quiet, uneventful summer, the communication team and the membership and connection team have all worked so hard to make this happen. It's good to be back together again in church. All right, with the business out of the way. My fellow Unitarian Universalist Dana Worsnap writes that often people say they love coming to a place with so many like-minded people. And I know what they're getting at, and I know they aren't getting it quite right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else to be loved, to be eligible for salvation. I want to be with people who value compassion and justice and love and truth, though they have all sorts of different thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things. I want to be with independent-minded people of good heart. I want to be with people who have many names and no name at all for God. I want to be with people who see me in my goodness and dignity, who also see my failings and my foibles, and who still love me. I want to be with people who feel their interconnection with all existence and let it guide their footfalls on the earth. I want to be with people who see life as the paradox that it is and don't rush to resolve it. I want to be with people who are willing to walk the tightrope that is living and who will hold my hand as I walk it. I want to be with people who let this community call them into different ways of being in the world, who inspire one another to follow the call of Spirit, who strive to keep their promises and hold me to the ones I make. I want to be with people who give of themselves, who share their hearts and minds and gifts. I want to be with people who know that human community, this thing, is often warm and generous and sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you. Will you rise in body or spirit? Let's join in singing it out.
If you want to be with those types of people in a like mind with Reverend David, one final announcement. We will have choir rehearsal next week, and you will be with those people in choir rehearsal and in our choir Thursday at 7 o'clock, and we'll see you in the Sky Room. But until then, let's join in song singing When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. And let's sing. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, we will trust them in each us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our face and in each other's eyes. And our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving kind, and we hear our voice in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith. Then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place. We are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place. Heart is in a holy place. You may be seated.
I'll share this reading. The Unitarian minister Gary Kowalski likes to talk about how everyone carries around their belief bag. And we don't start with anything in there. He says, babies don't believe anything automatically. They're not like born Buddhists, born Baptists, or believers. But soon after we arrive in the world, we start to gather ideas, put stuff in there. And we pick up beliefs and ideas about people and animals and families. And we collect ideas about stars and comets and how it all got started. We accumulate ideas about good and bad and right and wrong and what's healthy and unhealthy and what's important in life. And all of these beliefs, all of them, which we get from a parent or playmates and TV and Sunday school, it all goes in the belief bag. Now, most religions define themselves by what is in that bag. Christians believe in Jesus, Muslims believe in Allah, in the Prophet Muhammad, Buddhists believe in the Four Noble Truths, but Unitarian Universalists, we don't have one set of beliefs in that bag. And what makes us different isn't the contents of that thing, but the way we carry it, because there are different ways of holding this bag. Some people hold the bag like this, right? You clutch it close, you make sure the top is tightly sealed. You don't want anything new coming in there to threaten what's in there already. The world is wrapped up in this nice, tidy package. And because the bag is closed up, we call those people closed-minded. On the other hand, some people are just the opposite. They don't pay any attention to what goes in. One idea is as good as another, and if other folks believe it, or if they read it on the internet, then it must be true. And then there are people who carry their bags like this, like a club to hit other people with. And they walk around waiting for someone to smack with their belief bag. And what is inside the bag may sound very nice and sweet. I believe in peace and kindness and the golden rule, and then they use their bag as a weapon. I believe in peace and kindness and the golden rule for straight people. None of those is the Unitarian Universalist way. We carry our bags like this. We carry them with the top open, so new ideas and experiences can get inside, but not so open that anything in the whole wide world goes in. We hold them open too so we can see what our neighbors think and share our thoughts with them. And we don't use those beliefs to bully and beat up people. That's what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. And the next time somebody asks you, what do people in your church believe? You can tell them, instead of telling you what, let me tell you about how I believe. Let me tell you about how I hold this, how I carry it with me, and above all, what I do with this.
The chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. It is a cup of life, sustenance to quench our spirit's thirst, a cup of celebration and resolve, a flame of hope, a light to warm our souls and guide us home. I'd like to invite Kai Wisner to light this morning's chalice.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Kai Wieser. So today we gather to learn how to go church shopping. And in response to that, I would like to say that I'm a very satisfied customer. My initial purchase of Unitarian Universalism began in Roseburg, Oregon, at the age of 17 in a church of about 20 people. My family life could be described as dysfunctional, and the congregation quickly welcomed me. I made a home for myself there by getting involved in any way I could, from volunteering with the kiddos, fundraising, and helping in service. And my purchase brought me some amazing things: peace, solace, love, validation, and self-respect. 10 years later, my sister successfully moved in with loving guardians, and I was given the honor of introducing her to this Roseburg congregation, and they understood the assignment. They engaged her in the choir and made a welcoming home for her that was full of support to help her face her upcoming trials. It's no surprise to me that when I arrived in Boulder a year and a half ago, suffering what I can only describe as a spiritual malady, I knew it was time to go church shopping. So I took to Facebook. I looked up UU Boulder, and I found this church. I made the purchase promptly without really comparing, for I was in desperate need. I was in desperate need of a higher power that loves me unconditionally and a community that accepts me. I quickly connected with various members of the congregation after service, whose kindness and joy was rather intimidating at first. I now delight in seeing these folks every Sunday. I listened to the sermons and was filled with the love of my higher power and hope for the life that I wanted to create. Today, the messages I receive here every Sunday, paired with the community that I joyfully take part in, give me the love, strength, and hope to create my life as I dream it. So this happy customer is honored to light this chalice in gratitude for this church community.
Thank you, Kai. I really enjoyed that, and I take it as further evidence of what I said at the start. The outpouring and friendliness of the folks in this church really have made a difference, Kai being an excellent example. Okay, chalice lighting time, actually worship leader time. All right, getting serious for a moment. We are a promise-making, a promise-breaking, and a promise-remaking people. We are called not to be perfect, but to be faithful. In that spirit, each week, we speak our covenant aloud, all together. It is a reminder of the promises we make in this gathered community. I invite you to stand as you're able and willing, and online and in person, will you join me and say our covenant? We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it.
Join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Let's begin with a breath together. And another, but slower and deeper, arriving in this moment, being here now. In the quiet of this place, what I remember and I know, what I pray and hope for, is to reach out to the people around me in this world with compassion, to see and know that everyone is struggling, even if they look, especially if they look like they've got it all together. Everyone is struggling. And to meet that, to try to meet them with the same gentleness and tenderness that I want for myself too. But more than that also, what I hope for and pray for this morning, what I invite you to join me in, is that the same compassion that reaches out to the people around me, the same compassion which sees someone suffering next to me and offers a hug without even thinking, that compassion too needs to turn around and be directed inwards to each of ourselves. And that can be difficult work, even for those of us who are so quick to offer help and hope and hugs. It can be difficult to let go of that judge internally, the one that says everyone else is deserving of compassion, but you aren't. You uniquely are bad or broken, not good enough, or if you just do a little better, then you're worthy of receiving it. And our work this morning, our hope and our prayer, is to let go of that. And in the same way that we turn an easy embrace to someone who needs and wants it, that we turn that to ourselves too. Knowing that we're struggling, knowing that we're beloved already, even if it doesn't feel like it. Be together in silence for a few moments. Amen. None of us are alone. It's easy to say it, it's harder to feel that. But there's a thread which weaves through this gathered community, which weaves through every heart that is breaking with sorrow, breaking open with joy. And each week in the service, we set aside time in ritual to make that visible, to embody those unseen interconnections of our hopes, of our concerns. And in a few moments, as the music begins, I invite you gathered in person to come forward. And as you come down to the front, to let your breathing steady and your thinking quiet, and call to mind the joys and the sorrows, the things that weigh you down and lift you up. Take a stone from the bowl here in front, in token of everything that's on your heart, and place it into the earth, resting in something larger than any of us, a community made visible in rock, connected by the concerns that we carry. This morning, I lift up in the love of this community Fred Cole and his family, son JB, evacuated. They live in British Columbia, evacuated as a precaution. And we send our thoughts and our solidarity to everyone experiencing wildfire. And our hearts are with Barb and Fred and their whole family. Today, their daughter, Kendall, would have been 56 years old. And it was a year ago yesterday that we celebrated a memorial of her life. And finally, friends, I rise with the difficult news to share this morning that we were notified just this morning that Betty Skip, after a short period of in-home hospice care, has passed. We hold her in deep love and care. Please come forward as you're moved.
stand up, stand up. Everybody take a stand. Join the caravan of love. I'm your brother. I'm your brother, don't you know? I'm your brother. I'm your sister, don't you know? We'll be living in a world of peace, in a day when everyone is free. We'll bring the young and the old. Won't you let your love flow from your heart? Every woman, every man, join the caravan of love. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Everybody take a stand. Join the caravan of love. I'm your sister. Are you ready? Everybody take a stand. Are you ready? Are you ready? Every woman, every man. Are you ready? Are you ready? Congregation, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Reverend David, are you ready? Are you ready? Is he ready? Chancel Katz, are you ready? Are you ready? We're so ready. Everybody, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Every woman, every man. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready. I had Jehovah's Witnesses stop by our house yesterday, which is only the second time that's ever happened, and this time I did not invite them in. Genuinely, I was a seminarian. I knew nothing. I was curious. That was a long time ago. I said to them a polite no and hoped they'd stay cool. It was hot. They were wearing a lot of clothes. Here's the thing, that tradition, you know this already, that tradition is not going to be a good fit for me. But the encounter reminded me how many expectations I take for granted. I just take for granted the water that I'm swimming in, how many expectations I have about what the church is and what it's about. I take for granted that we are democratically governed, that we elect our leaders. I take for granted that we are transparent with our finances. I take for granted that I'm part of a church where having the right gender is not a requirement for leadership. I take for granted that you just get to ask why in church, that is a question that is welcome in the mix. I take for granted that no one is going to hell, and that guilt and shame are not to be used as tools of control. I take for granted that you're not required to believe things that your experience knows to be untrue. I take for granted that you don't have to sneak your analytical mind into church under your coat. You get to use reason and experience and scientific knowledge, and that stuff gets celebrated right exactly alongside experience of the holy and all this stuff that you can't put into words. Shopping for a church is, I think, in most ways about looking for the kind of relationship that you want to be in. When I was in my early 20s, I was working an office job for the first time, and my small team of coworkers invited me out to happy hour one evening. I was only a few years sober from alcohol back then, and even though I felt safe enough to have a Diet Coke while my coworkers had a beer, unfathomably, alcoholics, they only had one. I don't get that. But I was nervous too, then, wondering how much of myself could I really show them? I was wondering what kinds of people would they be away from their desks? And maybe the sort of questions that you ask yourself at the first happy hour with your coworkers are the same sort of questions to ask yourself church shopping. Is the person who you see on the job really who they are? Is the person who you see in the pew really who they are? Are they curious about me? Or do they want me to conform, whether that's stated or unstated? Do I get to bring all of myself into this relationship? Or am I going to curate, okay, I can show you people these parts, but not those parts, because it doesn't match what your expectations need to be? Are the people around you trying to figure out who you are and what you're about? Or are they stuck on what you look like, what you sound like, what your age is, whether that's old or young? If you show up to church proudly genderqueer in the most beautifully ambiguous presentation, do people ask about that? Or do they ask, how's your week been? What brings you to church? If you show up to church a person of color, do you get introduced to the other person of color? Let me introduce you to our music director. Do you get that? Or do you get asked, how has your summer been? What do you do for fun? Where should I go for a hike around here? I asked a group of Unitarian ministers for suggestions, for advice, for red flags, encouraging signs to give someone shopping for a church home. And I love, love, love this response from a colleague who said, for me, the measurement of success is, does it seem like people, in general, does it seem like people feel empowered to show up here as their full selves, messy, marginalized, imperfect, and receive support and care? And then that's followed quick by, do I feel empowered to show up here as my full, messy, marginalized, imperfect self? Find a church where people don't have it all together. Really, because none of you do. I don't. Don't find a church where people are pretending that everything is perfect and there are no problems. Find a community of people who know what it is to hold suffering and experience that and walk with that and transform it. Find a church where people hurt and they can talk about hurting, not as a thing that is in the past and over and done with. And yes, I had a very traumatic time, but I've got that all figured out and all the griefs wrapped up. That's not real. Find a church, I think, where the highest rank you can achieve is regular person. And there are no additional ranks to increase above that, regardless of how you dress, too. There are no ranks above regular person. And you've already achieved that rank. The literature professor Alan Jacobs observes, and he says this about like-mindedness. He's going to try and undermine this whole idea of being around like-minded people. He says, you know what it is like. You know what it's like to be around people who share your core convictions, and you can't stand to be around them. In one sense, they are your in-group, right? And in another sense, it's like, when can I leave this party? It closes you off to spend all your time around people who may be like-minded, but whose spirit is unhealthy. They're not fun people to be around. He says this, he says, when I was deciding who do I want to be talking with on social media, this is back when Twitter was Twitter. When I was deciding who do I want to be talking with on social media, I realized it wasn't necessarily the people who agreed with me about all of my political and religious beliefs. What I wanted was people who were generous, people who were kind and caring and thoughtful, so that when I said something, they'd think about it, not just react. That's the life we're trying to live here. That's the community that y'all are co-creating. We disagree about all sorts of things, large and small, from spirituality to politics, to whether the Nuggets or the Buffaloes are more fun to watch. I got into basketball last year, so I'm to brace yourself for a lot of basketball analogies. No, here's the point. We're not trying to be like-minded. We're trying to be like-hearted. The real and enduring substance of this congregation is the network of relationships, of mutuality between us. And those real relationships are people's scarcest resources and deepest hunger. I was back on vacation. We went back. I grew up outside of Boston, and I got together with a group of friends who've been friends my whole life. We met each other when we were that big. And sitting around the campfire late at night, long past when I should have been in bed, one of these guys who's telling these incredible stories about where work is taking him around the world to places, to rooms, to parties that are unimaginable to have that access, says, listen, what I want, what I'm hungry for, what I'm missing is this thing around the campfire, this thing where I know and am known deeply, where I can talk about all these things that I've done, but they don't define me. They're not fundamentally who I am and what I'm about, where I can be a person among persons with ritual that grounds. And I told him, because we've been friends since we were that high, I told him, dude, that is literally my job. Those real relationships are people's scarcest resource and deepest hunger, I think, often. And this is why one of the tools to measure your church shopping is whether you're going to a croissant church or a bagel church. This is like a measure of, will you follow me through this analogy? It's not about the pastry, but it is about what happens in social hour. In social hour, after the service, are you in a room of bagels where there are circles of people and there's no space for you? Or are you in a room of croissants? I fully acknowledge this is ridiculous for me to be saying, but the analogy works. Are you in a room of croissants where the people have space, where when you come into the service and there's not room, people scoot over and make room for you? This isn't a spectator sport. Church, I think this fundamentally is the measure for church shopping. We're not trying, and you're not looking for a congregation that is hip and cool and brilliant and smart, although so many of you are. You're looking for a place that is warm and welcoming and honest, even when things are terrible, because life is extremely difficult. You go to a place, and church shopping, sometimes it suggests consumerism, like, let me go find the thing that meets all of my needs, and I don't really have to do anything. It just solves everything for me. But that's not exactly the question to ask. This place exists to live out its mission. And the question is this a mission that I want to be part of? And is the way the community's living into it the kind of life that I want to create? This community, all of us are here to co-create the place, to meet each other's needs together. And in the end, the question of church shopping isn't fundamentally about finding a community that gives you everything exactly you want. It's about finding a community that you want to co-create for each other. A place where you can practice being who you are and who you are called into being, where you can practice living in the world that you want to help create. Amen.
Let's stand and join in singing Lean on Me.
That was great. Offering time. This month, our offering goes to support the work of this congregation. And I invite you to give generously as you are able. For those online, you can use the QR code that might be on the wall behind me, is on the wall behind me. For those gathered in person, you can scan the QR code or make a donation as the ushers now pass the baskets. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community.
as this service closes, let me offer 2 invitations. First, our Finding Yourself at UUCB class is in the Emerson room, just across the hall that way, at 12:30 with lunch provided. It's a class for folks who want to connect more deeply here and explore what it means to intentionally commit to be part of the community. Even if you didn't RSVP, our membership coordinator, Irene, and I would love to have you join in, and we do this about every other month or so, if today doesn't work. The second invitation I have is I hope you'll join us in the Sky Room after the service for coffee and food and cake in celebration of our new website and logo and name tags, and I hope there too you'll offer a word of thanks and appreciation to our designer, Emily Starks, who's here with us today, and many of you know. Friends, our worship ends and our service begins again. Our living begins again. Go in peace and amen. Will you rise in body or in spirit? We'll close in song.